You're standing in a room that feels more like a jewelry store than a coffee shop. Gleaming chrome, dark wood, and perfectly placed spotlights. This is a Nespresso boutique. An attendant in a sharp black suit guides you toward a wall of sleek, futuristic machines. You pick one out. It's beautiful, an object of modern design that promises a perfect cup of coffee at the touch of a button. Then you see the pods, a rainbow of colors, each one a different grand cru. They're about $1 each. And you think, well, that's just what pods cost. It's the price of convenience, the price of luxury. You're wrong. That $1 pod, the raw materials inside it cost just a few cents. The machine you just bought for $150, it was engineered to keep you buying those $1 pods forever. For years, this simple, lopsided transaction built Nestlé's Nespresso into an empire that in recent years has topped $6 billion in annual revenue. It's a business model so effective it feels like a secret hiding in plain sight. But that secret is falling apart. The empire was built on a fortress of patents and proprietary technology, designed by a brilliant engineer inside a Swiss food conglomerate. But the walls of that fortress are being torn down, not by another multinational giant, but by thousands of anonymous factory workers in Shenzhen, who figured out how to make the same thing for a fraction of the price. This is the story of how Nespresso's multi-billion-dollar monopoly was created, and how it's being dismantled. This channel is about the monopolies hiding in plain sight, the ones that shape what we buy and how much we pay for it. If you want to understand the secret business models behind everyday products, subscribe now and join us as we pull back the curtain. Every empire has a founding myth, and Nespresso's begins not in a boardroom, but in an Italian coffee bar in 1975. An ambitious young Nestlé engineer named Eric Favre is on a trip to Rome with his wife, who often teased him about the bland coffee the Swiss drank. Determined to find the ultimate espresso, Favre scoured the city. He noticed one particular coffee bar, Sant Eustachio, had unusually long lines of locals. The coffee was exceptional. Watching the baristas, Favre discovered their secret. They weren't just pulling the lever once. They were pumping it repeatedly, forcing more water and air into the coffee grounds. This increased oxidation, which drew out more flavor and produced a richer crema, the signature foam on top of a perfect espresso. That was the key. Favre returned to Switzerland obsessed with a single idea: build a machine that could replicate this process at home. His vision was a sealed pod that would keep ground coffee fresh, which begins to lose its precious aroma the moment it's exposed to air, and a system that would pierce it, injecting hot, pressurized water to create the perfect home espresso. In 1976, he filed the first patent for what would become the Nespresso system. But inside Nestlé, the world's largest food company, his bosses weren't impressed. They saw it as a threat to their biggest cash cow, Nescafé instant coffee. For nearly a decade, the project languished in the R&D department, an invention nobody wanted. Nespresso finally launched in 1986, nearly a decade after its invention. The initial rollout was a disaster. Targeting offices and restaurants, the machines were clunky and expensive, and the concept of buying coffee from a single source was completely foreign. The business bled money. The turnaround began in 1988 under a new CEO, Jean-Paul Gaillard, who made a critical decision. He abandoned the office market and repositioned Nespresso not as a convenience, but as a luxury. The target shifted to affluent households. The brand started using the vocabulary of high-end wine, calling its capsules Grand Crus. They opened elegant boutiques in premium locations instead of selling in supermarkets. And crucially, they established the Nespresso Club, a direct-to-consumer mail-order system that created a database of loyal, high-spending customers. Throughout the 2000s, the growth was explosive. Celebrity ambassadors cemented the brand's image of sophistication and exclusivity. By 2011, annual sales had soared past 3 billion Swiss francs. Nestlé had successfully turned a simple cup of coffee into a premium lifestyle product. But the real genius wasn't the marketing. It was the wall of patents they built around their tiny aluminum pods. That wall was about to be tested. As Nespresso's first critical patents began to expire around 2012, competitors saw their chance. Companies like Ethical Coffee Company began producing pods compatible with Nespresso machines, often at a lower price. Nespresso's response was swift and aggressive. They launched a series of patent infringement lawsuits across Europe, fighting to keep competitors out of their ecosystem. But the fight got uglier. Competitors accused Nespresso of not just defending its patents, but of actively designing its new machines to block third-party pods. In France, which accounted for a quarter of Nespresso's global sales, antitrust authorities opened an investigation. The inquiry looked into whether Nespresso had abused its dominant market position by tying the purchase of its machines to its capsules. They found evidence that Nespresso had made technical modifications to machines, like changing the piercing mechanism, that had the effect of rendering competitors' capsules incompatible. Faced with a finding of wrongdoing, Nespresso settled. The company agreed to stop warning customers against using third-party pods and to honor its machine warranty even when rival capsules were used. It was a major blow. The legal battles and antitrust scrutiny exposed the ruthless tactics Nespresso was using to protect its high-margin kingdom. The fortress walls were starting to crack. The strategy Nespresso fought so hard to protect is a classic business model known as razor and blades. You sell the razor, the coffee machine, at a low price, sometimes even at a loss. Then you make your real profit on the disposable blades, the pods that customers have to buy from you over and over again. But Nespresso took it a step further. They achieved near-perfect vertical integration. Nestlé owned the brand, designed the machines, and roasted and encapsulated the vast majority of its coffee in just 3 main factories in Switzerland. They controlled the entire retail experience through their exclusive boutiques and online club. Imagine if your printer manufacturer also owned the only company that made ink, and the only stores where you could buy it. You couldn't go to Staples or order a third-party cartridge from Amazon. You'd be locked in, forced to pay whatever price they set. That was the magic of the Nespresso model, and for decades it was nearly impenetrable. But while Nespresso was busy fighting legal battles in European courts, a different kind of threat was emerging on the other side of the world. It wasn't another multi-billion-dollar corporation. It was a sprawling, decentralized manufacturing ecosystem in China's Guangdong province. This is the world's workshop, a cluster of cities like Shenzhen and Guangzhou that have spent decades making small appliances for the rest of the planet. The factories here churn out millions of rice cookers, electric kettles, and air fryers. The workers and engineers possess a deep institutional knowledge of how to build these kinds of products efficiently and cheaply. When Nespresso's foundational patents expired, these factories didn't see a legal threat. They saw a technical blueprint. They saw a popular product with an artificially high price. And they did what they do best. They got to work. The reverse engineering began. Chinese manufacturers started producing their own pod-compatible machines. At first, they were simple knockoffs, but soon they began innovating, creating machines that were smaller, more efficient, and most importantly, dramatically cheaper. Scroll through online marketplaces like AliExpress, Temu, or even Amazon, and you'll find them. Dozens of brands you've never heard of, selling espresso machines that accept Nespresso-style pods for as little as $15 to $40. They aren't sold in gleaming boutiques by staff in suits. They are shipped directly from a warehouse, cutting out every middleman Nespresso, so carefully constructed. These factories aren't run by celebrity-endorsed CEOs. They're run by anonymous entrepreneurs who saw a massive gap between what a product costs to make and what a company was charging for it. They don't have marketing slogans or brand ambassadors. Their only selling point is the price tag, and it's a devastatingly effective one. And here is the crucial insight, the one that unravels the entire Nespresso illusion. The core technology is no longer a closely guarded secret. While Nespresso continues to innovate and patent new designs, the basic mechanics that built the empire are now common knowledge. The pods that go into a $15 machine from Shenzhen and a $150 machine from Nespresso may come from factories using nearly identical component supply chains. The coffee inside might be different, but the aluminum, the seals, and the fundamental mechanics are now widely understood. The magic has evaporated. The premium you pay is no longer for a unique technology. It's for a brand name, a design, and a shopping experience. This exact story is playing out across countless industries. For decades, the eyewear industry was dominated by a single giant, Luxottica, which kept prices for frames and lenses artificially high. Then, online disruptors like Zenni Optical and Warby Parker used direct-to-consumer models to offer glasses for a fraction of the cost. The same pattern has upended the markets for sneakers, watches, and even dental aligners. The cycle is always the same. A company develops an innovative product and protects it with patents and a powerful brand. They enjoy years of high-margin monopoly. But eventually, the core patents expire, the manufacturing know-how spreads, and a new wave of disruptors, often from global manufacturing hubs, enters the market with a good enough product at a shockingly low price. The premium brand is forced to compete on price, not just image, and the entire structure falls apart. So let's go back to that Nespresso boutique. You're standing there, looking at the sleek $150 machine and the wall of $1 pods. But now you see it differently. You know the machine is a gateway, and the pods are where the real money is made. You know that the technology inside is no longer exclusive. And you know that somewhere in a warehouse in Shenzhen, a nearly identical machine is sitting in a box, ready to be shipped to your door for the price of a few sleeves of Nespresso's own capsules. You know that the few cents worth of coffee inside that pod is being sold to you for $1, not because that's what it costs, but because for 30 years they could get away with it. The question is no longer about technology, it's about choice. Would you switch to a $15 machine if it used the exact same pods and made a coffee that was almost indistinguishable? Tell us why or why not in the comments below. What are you really paying for when you buy an espresso?